2 years with CBS Interactive, and then most recently GoPro. And so I've been at GoPro a little over a year. Joined right before we went in May of 2014, and we've had just a rapid. I have. It's only 20 minutes. I may need the hook because I've got some video too. I figured, all right. So GoPro is sort of capital this moment in time where people are spending a lot more on time online sharing their experiences, and so that's sort of the sweet spot that we're in. We have this amazing virtuous cycle within our company, and it's the core of our business model where people will walk into a Best Buy and Virgin America when their content, publish it, which is then viewed by more people, which then drives You'll notice the NHL symbol right smack dab in the middle up there, particularly for this Canadian audience. We're doing a lot more partnerships, and we have guests constantly from companies that are interested in using our curated content, and more different partners are looking for ways to use our capture devices. So we recently entered into a partnership with the NHL. Not sure if anybody knew that or not, but we highlighted the GoPro during the skills competition at the recent All-Star game. And I had a clip that I thought I would share with you to show you a little bit more.
All right, ready?
Oh, this is going to be fun. Go from up here. Showtime. Come on, John. Be serious.
I think it will be very interesting for the viewer to get a better understanding of what I see and how I track bicycling.
With all those cameras on the ice, then you kind of get an idea of what we're trying to put out.
Got a little bird. I'll put it right in the middle. Just enough of that.
Speaking of, my go-to move.
Counter. The problem is, we're going to give away our secrets for the year.
Can never go wrong with a little, are using GoPros in different ways, or really capitalizing, not capture device, #1 market share for all camcorders and camera sales. We had 400K unit sales in 2010, so some pretty significant growth. 25,000 retail outlets. Our app is becoming more and more a key differentiator for us. We are the #1 channel on YouTube. Our revenue has seen some pretty significant growth as well. We're 1.4 million in 2014, which was up 116% from 2010. So it's been a great story. 40 million views of our launch video that we had with the Hero 4 this past November. I think that the #1, certainly apples to oranges, but the #1 television show, if I recall, is like 20 million views per episode. So it's pretty amazing happening. We've got this great moat in our brand of A lot of discussion online about the commoditization of cameras and capture devices. Xiaomi in China has created a real cheap knockoff, but we've got this fabulous, fabulous brand that's really creating some good barriers to entry. I mentioned content, user-generated content. These are the three sort of key areas. One of the things that people may not know about us, when you see an original GoPro production on the YouTube channel, it may have been curated by our media team. So we've got a mix of engineering talent within our organization, but also a large group of people who create films. And so our sort of three main channels of content that you'll see on different social media or on different platforms: UGC, where people are just out creating it and they're creating great clips. Curated UGC, where our media team goes online and finds some of the best content, either cleans it up themselves or asks the user to reshoot it, and then we pull it in and use it on our platforms. Or GoPro Original Productions, which again is our media team creating either movies or other great clips. It was kind of a young company, but Nick founded the company. Nick Woodman founded the company in 2001. He didn't have his first in 2005, so it was he was doing it himself, selling out of his van over several years. 2010 was a massive year for us when we released our first hired our 1,000th employee. So really, we just passed the 1,300 mark. So 2000 from the last year, we went from 850 to over 1,300 employees, and have offices around the globe. San Francisco, San Mateo is our headquarters. We have an office down in San Diego, a small office in but we just acquired 2 companies in France, so we now have a base in Paris and in Chambéry, development center, and then Shenzhen is where the bulk of our manufacturing happens. We do that through a third party, but we have a big group of employees that are working with our manufacturers. So let's talk about people and talent. Our people team fuel the company's growth. Rami's comment, everybody understanding their roles and responsibilities is even more and more important. So when you've added 500 people in a year, it's hard to onboard everybody and getting everybody working effectively. And so a lot of our focus in the last year, while it's been hiring amazing people, it's been on culture, it's been on org design, it's been on business process, and ensuring that we continue to be able to execute effectively. And so, for your organizations as well, I'm sure as you're adding employees and growing, at each different stage, there are different complexities that need to be worked on. Hiring has been really positive for us. Again, I think we're helped by our great brand and a really strong. We have about 25,000 applicants a quarter. We nowhere near the millions that you hear about with Google. 1,000 person, 1,300 person company. It's a pretty good inbound rate. About 100 open jobs right now. We have close to 250 open roles, and our time to fill has been going down. So as we've been buddy's job to hire, and that's the most important thing as a manager that you can do, our time to fill has dropped fairly significantly. A few hot topics to talk about, and fire away good discussion points. You hear a lot about the war for talent in the Silicon Valley, and we tend to focus it on tech, but it's not just tech. Great people are really hard to come by, and in consumer technology just sounding to me. So we have software engineers, and I think our most recent new college graduate class, we had a few offers that were in the 125 to 135 range graduate. So it's super hot. Space. I lead people at GoPro, but I also lead workplace services, facilities, and real estate. So as you may have heard from others or know, space and real estate in the valley is a challenge. There's a shortage of space, and it's super expensive. This becomes a retention device as well, more and more. And I heard Evernote provides employees a benefit where somebody will go clean their house. So more and more employee benefits, are becoming a real driver here. When I was in Canada I'm going to jump down to the culture piece. When I was in Canada at Electronic Arts, and if you'll remember the Burnaby campus, is probably sports soccer 4% attrition rate, right? The 2005-2006 time frame, and what we is while space is critically important, it's great at bringing people in. But what really matters is the culture and the work that people are doing and how they feel like they're progressing in the organization, and that all the bells and whistles are important. But what really matters is what people are doing at their desk every day and their relationship with the other employees. Culture is a real key differentiator here in the Valley, but everywhere. We were really proud of Rami's comments. Nick Woodman, who made a tremendous amount of progress in his early days. We move fast. The dark circles under my eyes will attest to it. But we like to move quickly, maintain balance. I think this shows a lot of companies. And I would say this is an aspirational one for us, but one that we work hard to maintain. No half-assery. We're the only company that has ass in twice, which also tells you a little bit about our culture. But no half-assery. We want to maintain a high quality bar. Integrity always, another one that shows up often, and then be a hero. And this is one that we talk about a lot, and the executive staff talks about a lot. Is we're always trying to push the boundaries. We're always trying to do the impossible, and that a big piece of who we are comes from this pursuit of people's passions, and when the company was really built on people's passions, and so that also really emanates through our culture. One of those every Thursday. Is this kind of Google-esque, or are you innovating during this time? It's really about living your passions and using our products to capture yourself living your passions, or using our software tools and editing tools to create a great clip. And we're hopeful that by doing this, it's going to get people to take a. And again, as pursuing your passion is such a big part of who we are, give them a chance to do that during the week, but also get a lot closer to product. Whether you're in accounting or whether you're in HR or marketing, our hope is that if you jump on the freeway and go down to Half Moon Bay and jump in the water and go for a swim, and use our products to capture it as an employee, you're going to learn something more about the company and be able to provide that feedback, and as such, we'll become an even better company. So that's a big pillar to who we are. Those are the slides. It looks like I'm about to get the hook, questions?
I'm going to give you the polite.
All
So,
right.
like you're saying, it's sort of money and other things. At the end of the day, sort of attracting and keeping people is sort of what you can do, and then sort of this sort of other sort of halo that you can build around your company and sort of what you stand for and the kinds of things you do. So it's sort of dead on to a conversation a bunch of us had.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
We probably have time for one or two quick questions if there was particularly about people. Sir.
Yes, sir.
How important are the values in your hiring process, and what does it actually look
Yeah.
like? Like with 25,000 applications a quarter,
Yeah.
how do you screen for that?
Yeah.
What do you do? And in the actual, once they get down to the short list, how do you do you account?
Yeah, it's a great question, and again, something that Rami touched on as well. It's important. We one of the things that we talk a lot about is evolving the culture, because the culture at 200 people is very different than at 1,300 people, and so we're aware that we need to evolve it, but at the same time we want to hang on to a lot of what's made us great, and that has to do with the people that you're bringing into the company, and so we haven't said, hey, here's a template of questions you should ask to get to the root of some of our values. But what we have talked about with hiring managers is use the opportunity to ask questions like, tell me about a time when you've had a really difficult problem to solve and then run into a conflict with another employee. How have you worked it out? It's questions like that help get to, is this somebody who's going to be collaborative or not? And so there's probably a lot more that we can do to kind of memorialize and drive a key set of questions, but we're also trying not to be too prescriptive, and like a lot of young companies, we don't want to be too corporate and sort of have a lot of sort of things written down that you have to do during an interview process, but we talk about it a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So with that, see, now you put your hands up. There were no questions. There was one question. Now there are 3 questions. Is it literally a 30-second question? Yeah. Do it.
How do you guys manage the tension between the Hall-ass culture and organizationally, and the trying to maintain balanced aspiration? That's a huge problem.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
That's a great question. Yeah, I think it's a constant tension in the company for sure. I think it actually comes back to the integrity value, which is the consumer. And so if we need to delay shipping something because we don't think is at the level that it needs to be, we will, right? If something on our roadmap that we don't think makes sense because the quality isn't there, or we've been rushing it. So I would say we probably put the no half-assery value slightly ahead of the haul-ass value. We're adding lots of people, and we're investing, and we're doing things to enable us to go quick. But we want to create great consumer experiences, great products first. So that I would say if there's that's probably the default answer. There isn't we don't have a formula for it for sure. Yeah.
And so with that, big round of applause.
Thank you. I'll just wrap. Yeah, free GoPro. I'll just wrap up by saying the other thing I didn't mention is I'm joining C100, which I'm really excited about, and so am available around. Happy to answer further questions at any point in time. I do have to go back to GoPro now, but I'm happy to get my contact info out. And sorry it was so short. And thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Keep the parade of awesome speakers going. Thank you, Jeff. The next speaker, well, not Canadian, is a deep friend of the C100. Jeff Clavier from SoftTech BC is going to talk a little bit about production on the Valley, give some advice. He's an awesome guy to know. Has helped us out immensely, and has offered to give us some time today, which we really deeply appreciate. So I'll turn it over immediately so we get the most time from Jeff.
Thank you so much. Sorry, excuse me. No worries. So, as I often joke, I used to be French. I've been here for 15 years, but I became American 3 years ago. It's actually great that GoPro has 2 S's in their set of values. We actually have 3. So I didn't put this in my deck. I should have. But basically, one of the rules we have, or the filters for opportunities we look at, is sort of we look for smart-ass teams building kick-ass products in big-ass markets. 3 asses, not 2, 3. So as we get the slides up, So I'm Jeff Clavier. I'm the managing partner of Softec VC. Softec is a micro VC firm which I started 11 years ago. My background is fairly straightforward. Born in France, entrepreneur, did a startup in the financial services market that we sold to Reuters after 5 years, and then after 7 years moved to the Valley to become sort of a corporate VC. That was in 2000, which is, by all accounts, the worst time to become a VC. But it was actually interesting to see how fucked up companies sort of became when they raised way too much money ahead of having product market fit. And when I sort of cleaned up the mess that my partners had created for about 4 years, and then 2003, 2004, saw the emergence of the next generation of consumer internet companies. And those were tremendously capital efficient as compared to their, run. And so I thought that that was actually a great opportunity to fund. And there was actually a funding gap in the market that I took advantage of. And so you heard about, the initial group of angels that became the super angels. 11. So Softec now invests out of an $85 million fund. It's one of the largest in space. We do investments per year, and here's my deck. So thank you for. So I'm going to catch up. So that is basically what I said in the first 2 minutes. This is what we've done. 165 investments. Those are some of the companies we've backed. This is how we built our footprint. So first as an angel, then raised one of the first micro VC funds. Now we're investing our $85 million sort of vehicle for Los Angeles. And more recently, we've done investments in Waterloo, Toronto, and you'll never guess, but Quebec City is the last deal where that I did. Half of the documents were in French, so I was the only one who could actually do it. Roughly, we've covered this quickly. Those are some of the sectors that we invest in. 50% of what we do is around SaaS. We do a lot of marketplaces. I was the original investor in Fitbit, and after that, we've done quite a few sort of connected devices. And in terms of crazy areas, we look at virtual and so on and so forth. So, to transition to the talk, which is really what's happening in the Valley's ecosystem in terms of financing, I wanted to share with you some stats. So 24 rounds closed in this last fund, average 800K, 7.5% ownership, 10 board seats. That shows that we basically have taken sort of leadership position. We've been very successful over the last, that you'll hear about a lot and I'll address again, is the Series A crunch, which is also Series B crunch, which means a ton of companies, stages, and who actually sort of helps you get which type of capital. So I'll sort of dive a little bit in pre-seed versus seed in the next slide, but basically you have an entire ecosystem of incubators, funds, angels, and crowdfunding platforms that help you get either your initial sort of pre-product financing and your sort of what we call traditional sort of seed financing. Then you'll go to what we call traditional VCs. They hate when we call them traditional VCs. But the other guys, the Series A, the Series B guys, who will sort of help you with those rounds. And what's been really sort of changing in the landscape is this sort of slew of funds or pension funds, mutual funds, pension funds, and hedge funds actually now investing in private companies. You've heard the term private IPOs, which is basically those crazy growth rounds at 200, 500 system in the seed. $11 years ago, you had basically a bunch of guys and gals who were primarily, fortunately at the time, guys who were sort of putting their resources together to angel fund companies. So you had really, 20, 30, $40 million available to fund, a few companies sort of a year. Fast forward to 2007, 2008, when I raised Fund 2, you had roughly 5 to 10
organized institutional sort of micro VCs. Fast forward now, you have 250, and that represents roughly $4 billion. So there's a lot of capital available at seed, which means now there is actual sort of focus and slicing and dicing of the space. And one of them is pre-seed, which is the old friends and family round. Friends and family used to be, well, I know you, I like you, I'll give you money, and if I don't get it back, it's okay, sort of. And the institutional version is, sort of those pre-seed funds that are investing very early, where the company is basically typically the founders. You're still at concept stage. You sort of get about 12 months of runway. The size of the round is sort of the size of a seed round, years ago. And investors there are either pre-seed funds or angels. Then you have sort of the real, what I call seed round, which is where we play, where sizes are 1.5 to 3 million. So that's where it's really sort of increased over the last few years. It used to be a Series A back then, right? So now, when you hear the seed is the new Series A, it's kind of true. So you have the team, so it's founders plus a few engineers, will sort of give you 18 to 24 months of run. And in terms of what you have to show for is a product that has at least some minimal sort of data that we can sort of look at. You sort of put it in the hands of early users, early customers, we can look at referrals, all the sort of key metrics that are important for us. The point is, we will not sort of invest blindly, we'll look at some early data. What's interesting is that for SaaS companies, you will actually see quite often some revenues. Just to give you a sense, a lot of the SaaS companies we've invested over the last couple of years would have 5 to 10K in MRR, would sort of look at the churn. So, early sort of interesting data. In the case of marketplaces, some would actually have close to $1 million in GMV. So, it's not really sort of the beginning anymore. It's really sort of pre-seed, which is the beginning.
Just a question.
Yeah.
These are at the beginning, like you expect those MRRs before you gave the seed investment, or at the end of it?
No, that's what we see when we invest. Gotcha. And I'll cover what we sort of need to show for to get the Series A. So that's why, the seed round is no longer sort of the first round, because you need to have built something that sort of gets traction, and that's typically what you use. Either you bootstrap or you raise a pre-seed round to do that. And then you will hear about seed primes or seed extensions or post-seed rounds, which are essentially, sort of a backup to a failed Series A. You don't have the metrics to show for, to raise your Series A, and so you go and, go around the table of your seed investors and potentially add a few more funds, to get, this extension that hopefully will help you sort of clear the bar. So more data is what you need to collect. And the reason why you want to have micro VC funds involved in your seed round is because they typically sort of understand the game, which is always reserve capital so that if ever you need a bit of an extension, we can be there for you. Any question on this?
Yeah, so if you go to the seed prime and you can't make your A,
yeah.
What's happening from a valuation perspective? Are you raising the same valuation you did on your seed, assuming you priced it, or is it a bit of a bump?
It really depends on how much you've achieved. I would say the harshest terms would be to do like an extension of the seed round, which is same valuation. It's typically bad news. Otherwise, you will sort of do a bit of a bump. Could be sort of a flat round, so you use the post of your seed round to become the pre, so you just land on it, or you get a bit of a a premium, but I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's a failed Series A. So.
Because if you're extending, how can you justify a higher valuation?
Yeah. So, and that's why a lot of people have said, series primes or extensions are fine or whatever, and you have funds which have raised on that sort of business model. At the end of the day, having sort of invested now in a few extensions of other people and having really sort of failed, I don't think we'll look at those in a very favorable sort of way. Okay, so what's happening right now? we sort of heard about this from GoPro. Yes, startup costs have dropped dramatically as compared to 99, 2000. The problem is that in the last 3-4 years, operating costs have increased 2 to 3x in New York and in the Valley and in New York. Very often we see startup salaries in the 110, 120, 130. Experienced people in the 150, 175. Trying to find office space in San Francisco is absolutely batshit crazy. So I even heard, some real estate sort of agents actually asking for options. Heard that last time, right? We know how that ended. And so I think that there's no other place like the Valley to actually sort of start and scale a company, but the level of competition and cost it implies is really sort of a factor you need to take into account. And people will sometimes point to us as forcing entrepreneurs to take more capital than they would maybe sort of require with those very large seed round. But the reason why we do this is A, they will absolutely use that. B, it's more expensive to do everything here in the Valley or in New York. And C, it's really sort of to clear those hurdles, you just need the runway to get you there. So because of, or thanks to Shred, in other sort of places, you really have an advantage. The question is, what does that mean? How do you structure your companies to get the best of both worlds? I sort of mentioned that the bar to the Series A is very high, and so you want to sort of understand what those hurdles are, and we'll actually help. I mean, if ever we invest with you, we'll help you with that. That's one of the questions actually we could add to the 3 assets. Can you be sort of funded in sort of 18 to 24 months sort of window? The good news for you is that there is so much capital which might have had sort of some trouble getting traction that will.
Yeah.
Mr. Simon.
So for our companies here, many of them are just past seed,
Yep.
They're looking at Series A. What would you think in terms of traction metrics that they would want to present to have, 6 to 8 to $10 million raise? What do you need to look like?
So let me see whether, I'm just going to cheat and jump to see whether I addressed that. Yeah, can I park your question? Thank you. So that's where sort of working with, if you're passing with the VC ecosystem and Crunch, it's just the fact that we've increased the funnel of seed companies trying to raise in a dramatic way. So first and foremost, hot or not sort of map varies every 6 to 12 months. So you have categories that used to be hot that are no longer hot, and some that become hot again. Tech is MR, one minimal churn, okay, so one with stuff like that. Because there is so much you need to build on a seed round. You're going to have to raise a very large seed round, and then you will typically sort of get your Series A on the back of a very strong pre-order campaign. And as sort of expectations rise, what's a great pre-order campaign has really grown in size. Right now, you come and show us $1 million sort of pre-order campaign, we're like, whatever, because very successful pre-order campaigns are in the millions, and so it's getting really sort of crazy. Did I answer your question, Robert?
Thank you.
Okay. So you need to figure out, who those sort of top 5 or 10 firms and start pre-marketing with them, getting to know them. They want to get, in the sense that you don't want to only sort of start your fundraising when you need to start your fundraising. You want to have sort of gotten those firms sort of an early look, so they can either do more due diligence on you, or you give them the opportunity to preempt. And I think if there's one thing you remember, which is for the first 3.5, 4 years of the company, any round you raise is to unlock the next one. So the pre-seed round helps you build, and once you've sort of, that's really sort of how we think about things. Our calculation, an 18 months runway in the Valley is an extra year, roughly. Us, as we invest in Canadian startups, is how can we really get the best of both worlds? So how can we get you to be sort of Silicon Valley or New York enough, so New York and Silicon Valley investors actually need in Canada, because Shopify and will become the next VP sales, the next. So, we've done this successfully with companies. So figure out who will actually invest in Canada, whether it's angels if you raise seed, or VCs if you raise seed or A's. Try and figure out if you can find an angel or a firm that will sort of come in, to join the syndicate. For us, we'll always work with a handful of firms. Like, for example, over 4 investments involve Inovia. We like those guys a lot. I'm a personal friend with Chris Arsenault, and if I find something interesting, I will bring it to him. And if Chris, this isn't off the record, but we were very happy to get Byron involved. So I have time for 2 questions. And
today, early, just before Series A, what were some of the metrics you'd be looking for? I heard you saying.
You might sort of look at for hardware company. So to raise a seed round or to raise a Series A?
Well, we're past seed.
Okay, so it's what you've in terms of the where you are in your sort of design to manufacturing to mass production sort of progress is convincing enough, or these days, unfortunately, it's the result of your pre-order or reservation campaign. So we want to see sort of look at
companies to get similar valuations to their peers globally.
I'm not sure I've seen such a gap. To be honest, we look at, the way you want to think about your valuation is what is the value you're going to get from your investor, and will that investor or set of investors unlock, that next round. So I wouldn't be fixated on, because look, if you're trying to get a YC type or hot Silicon Valley startup valuation somewhere in Canada, I think it's sort of the wrong sort of way to look at things. It's, can you get great investors who will really help you and figure out whether the valuation that they offer is market or acceptable to you? Because at the end of the day, your round will be roughly a 20 to 25% sort of dilution plus the option pool. So the question is, how much money? Sorry, I can't stick around. And thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Always good seeing you.
Here's the deal. We're all real slow getting in this morning. We got late stuff. We're in this together. We are.